Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive EV podcast. On a couple week hiatus, we took 2 weeks off in honor of our fearless leader, a little too fearless. But we've had a lot take place since the last recording. We've got a lot of catching up to do. But first question right out the gate: did you guys watch Investor Day?
Mm-hmm.
I know I did.
I was on vacation.
Okay. Well, let me just reaffirm, Randy, you didn't miss much.
That was my takeaway
opinion.
from looking at the Twitter. I was like, what are you tweeting? What's Sawyer saying? All right, fine. I'm going to go back to sleeping on the river.
Yeah. I know how I feel. But I am most curious in Mike's perspective as an engineer, because I feel like it was mostly geared towards more. It was mostly like you could have called this a engineer day in my head, more so an investor day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was particularly interesting. What really caught my eye or my interest was, I think it was like midway / near the end of it. They're talking about how they're redoing their assembly process. From instead of starting with the skateboard and building on top of it, which it doesn't really make sense with like a structural battery pack to like start with that, because you can input that later, which seems kind of or not redundant but backwards. That makes sense, kind of, and maybe this is something we could debate, to make everything in their own little modules and then bring all the modules together around the same time, so that you're decreasing this giant line, kind of like what we have with Giga Shanghai, where it's just one giant long Candyland path. Now it's just multiple different paths that kind of come together from different branches, which I think only makes manufacturing at Fremont maybe that much more possible to becoming more efficient. Assuming that they can somehow integrate it into what they have now. But looking at what they have now is a little bit tough. But my biggest complaint with that is you're painting everything separately, which means you might not have the same even coat on everything. You might not have the exact same paint on everything per se. You could have a different shade of blue or gray, kind of pointing back to what happened with my tailgate. My tailgate isn't the same. It's not the original tailgate. It's a different tailgate. You can tell if you're really looking at the hue of that gray. One's a little bit more blue, or one's a little bit more blacker or grayer. So stuff like that kind of worries me with diversifying the line. I guess it makes it so that manufacturing is a little bit quicker and easier, which good. If you're trying to make
sounds like
millions
Tesla,
and millions of cars, only makes sense to me.
Millions.
Right. So stuff like that, I'm totally in support of. But some of the paint issues is always just going to be that. And I think this is only going to exacerbate that issue a bit more. I'm more curious to see if the QC, or the quality control, gets somehow better with this approach.
I also had the same concern. I was trying to visualize that. I was like, okay, I can picture taking up less floor space to have individual stations that just build already complete doors. Like, they're already painted, they already have all the interior components on them, and they all just get attached once. And I was like, yeah, I mean, this is a nice way of explaining how all of your current factories are already dated as they're ramping up production. Whoops! Yeah, we shouldn't be doing this thing that we're doing. But I think that I'm glad we kind of didn't record last week, because it's given me more time to like process what was announced at Investor Day. And I watched a lot of videos of other people recapping it. And I think there were a lot of people that, there were a lot of Tesla bulls that were acting like it's amazing, this is mind blowing, this is the greatest event ever. And a lot of people in the community that were disappointed. I think partly because a lot of the YouTube community hyped it up way more than it actually deserved. I don't mean to brag, but I predicted that there would not be any really unveiling, and it would mostly just be analytical.
Quit tooting your horn.
Stop. Tooting my external speaker, because my car has that. But it was, after really rewatching it and processing the other people's interpretation of it, I feel like it was okay. I just I can't say it was great. I can't say it was terrible. Mm-hmm. I think the presentation is basically what the annual shareholder meeting is for. And I feel like this is kind of redundant to have an investor day and a shareholder meeting. What's the difference between that? Because they have a Q&A, they talk about the state of the company, and a lot of investor day was recap. A lot of it was repeating things they'd already done, how they've managed the chip shortage, how they started with the Model S, and then production hell was really hard with the Model 3. And I'm like, everyone knows this. If you don't know this, you're not watching Investor Day. Like, you would not be interested. It felt like the Model Y unveil all over again, where they're just like, so, in 2008, the Roadster, and we're like, oh, God. You know? Like, and then the whole bot presentation was just repeating everything at the last AI day. It was just Elon's like, if you automate the labor force, the economy has no limit. And we're like, how's that robo-taxi coming? You know, like, everyone's like, okay, moving on. And a lot of it did have new information, but you had to really sift through a lot of repeated information and a lot of stuff that I feel like wasn't, I guess some people may have been doubting it, but I feel like the whole first half hour of the presentation was Drew Baglino and Elon Musk talking about how there's enough batteries for everything. Like, we can transition to all electric vehicles, and there's enough solar, and we'll have enough batteries for energy storage, and we need heat pumps. It was them doing napkin math, essentially, on what we want to do is possible. Which, okay, I guess that helps reaffirm investors, but in my view, investors kind of knew that. I mean, maybe we didn't know the nitty-gritty details of how we were going to get all the batteries, but this didn't really go into that much detail other than we will keep mining for the materials we need, and there will be enough materials. I believed that years ago, and I still believe it today, but I was like, if someone didn't believe that, would this presentation convince them?
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have. I think you would have been like, no, that's going to be too complicated, or the mineral rights of different countries is going to be way more expensive, or all the emissions it takes to get the minerals out. I'm like, I don't agree with those people. I feel like if there's a lot of demand for something, the money will come to support it, you know, and there's a ton of demand for batteries, both for energy storage and cars. So I was like, I'm not sure who this is for. It just kind of makes existing investors go, yeah.
Told you.
That's right. Yeah. It's like, I'm not learning anything. I'm just like a cheerleader, basically, just going, that's right. There's batteries.
Oh, boy.
So I'm like, how much it's we kind of talked about this in the last podcast. It's like, how much is worth like doing a live broadcast for, opposed to just, I would have been okay with half of the stuff, probably 2/3 of the stuff they talked about Investor Day. Just upload that as a quick little nice YouTube video, you know, just do a little video that says, yeah, there's enough batteries and here's why. And you could make it really clean and simple and animated, and how they will find enough cells and lithium and refining that lithium and everything. It's like, yeah, just post little short videos, but putting it in the middle of a 5-hour presentation, it's not a great way to get the message out. And if it's specifically for investors, I just didn't think that was like a huge concern for us anyway. I mean, Tesla's been saying since Battery Day that we're going to build 20 million cars a year by 2030. And most of us, at least the vast majority of investors, I think, were like, okay, that sounds right. Yeah, you'll find the cells, you'll find the materials, and you'll build more factories and you'll scale them up. And this was like, but you might not think that's possible, but it is possible. And I was like, well, I think we knew that was possible, but okay. You just keep telling us that. And a lot of it was like, during the chip shortage, there weren't a lot of chips. So we had to find different chips to use. And I'm like, I know, you did that. I remember. I was there. We were listening. And I was like, if you're a heavy duty investor that's like really involved, you're probably listening to the earnings calls like I am.
Right.
And almost all of this stuff was talked about. Like the third generation vehicle platform on the earnings calls, they said would be half the price, half the floor space of the factory, and they could build it for less and cheaper. And some of the new information was like the the motors are using no rare earth materials. They're going to have these new motors. They're going to switch to 48 volt architecture, and that they have a design for it, but they don't want to unveil it. And I'm really curious, like, of your guys' impression. Do you think it's a bad idea to showcase, like, talk about the third generation platform so much that you don't have anything to unveil for it? Like, is that okay to do? I thought that kind of made it awkward.
I would say that your ability to give investor confidence as a company would be like that. You hit the nail on the head about it on the earning call. Like, there's a lot of redundancies that's being said. If this is what was said at I mean, there's no new information being provided. My theory is they keep hounding this bigger picture thing instead of talking about specifics, because Tesla right now is still being looked at it through a negative light, given its CEO and given what it's doing that has nothing to do with Tesla, with the exception of selling some shares. So right now, we're not past all this bad hype will go away, and the stock will bounce back up, and it'll be business as usual, and nothing changes, because that's just how the mindset is. People will focus on the next big problem. God willing that Elon just stops drawing attention towards himself on Twitter. But be that as it may, because they are separate entities, but the people looking at the two, they seem to like want to really give confidence about their, short-term vision and execution. We're mining this. We're good at this. The balance sheet says this. Stuff that we already know. Like you said, we're already investors, so we know. I don't think they should be talking so much about the next stage until they complete everything that's okay, Robotaxi, FSD, this cheaper model that was talked about. Everything that people have been Cybertruck. Where are these other things that we've been talking? Like, I don't want to talk about tomorrow. Let's talk about yesterday. Let's finish up yesterday. That's.
I thought you were gonna say today, but I like that. Yeah, yesterday's a better description.
It is. Let's talk about yesterday. Can we talk about that? I don't want to talk about tomorrow. I trust that, because the thing is like, we're working towards this. Yeah, and you're doing it. Yes, you are. But there's some unfinished projects in the room, some elephants in the corner. We gotta get to that. And I know that they know that, but because they can't give definitives for whatever reason, they will reinstill confidence by saying, look at all this, like, we're so efficient with these things, and this new factory in Mexico is going to be great, and new color, prices are going, and it's not happened yet, unless breaking news or something. At the time of recording this, you hinted that, which I agreed, there might be a price drop with the Model 3. They want to focus on like the good, because they were shining so bright last year. They were shining so bright, and then it's like Twitter happened. And all of a sudden, and it's like Tesla's like, hey, look. Don't think about the man, think about the product. Look at all these things. Look at our mission statement. Look at our vision. Here's our goals. Here's the this. Here's the that. And I see that's why they're doing it, but I don't think it's a good idea to keep talking about tomorrow until we finish.
That's an interesting theory you just pitched, which I didn't think about, but actually makes a lot of sense, that Investor Day was specifically hosted because there was too much like community concern that Elon doesn't care about Tesla and all he cares about is Twitter, and that's why there was all these people claiming Twitter overhang or that stock is down because of Twitter. And I don't think it had zero impact, but I also don't think it's the sole reason. There's lots of all these EV stocks went down. I don't think Twitter affected Rivian stock, but you would find a little correlation there. So that's a really good point of like, I felt the same way about, did you see the engineering headquarters announcement that Tesla did in California? Where like it's him and Gavin Newsom.
Yes.
Talking about how there's Tesla is still very present. I was like, what is this? Like, what's the point of this? Like, why does he need to be there? But it felt like a whole thing that says, see, I still get along with the Democratic Party. It's like,
boys, he's backtracking a lot of stuff.
It felt like don't freak out, guys stream, because there was very little information at that presentation, and there was very little. It's like, couldn't this been a? It's like, couldn't have this been an email? It was like, couldn't have this been a tweet, Elon? You know, we are not leaving California. Okay, we acquired this HP building. All right.
Okay.
So, you know, Giga Berlin was a tweet. I keep reminding people that. Like, one day in 2019, we woke up and it said, heart, 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 Giga Berlin. And that was it. We had to sit through 3 hours of lecture before we got to the Giga Mexico announcement.
Yeah.
And it was such an afterthought. I really hated the way they did it. They were like, they did the whole presentation, didn't really give us that much new other than, okay, less rare earth materials, 48-volt architecture, in-house design controllers. Here's how we're going to make a car cheaper. Okay, cool. What does it look like? No. Don't ask that. Don't like. Nope. To me, it's silly to talk so much about this next gen vehicle, and then there was a very reasonable question from the crowd. The Q&A. The guy was like, "So, you didn't even ask what it looks like or what the range or specs are. All he said was, can we get a rough timeline on when you'll unveil it? Like, will you unveil it next year or later this year?" And they were just like, we can't talk about that. Next question, please. Like, I was like, dude, why are you going to hype it up this much? You know we're going to ask. Right. Like, you know we have to ask. And even Franz at that section when they're like, we're going to assemble vehicles differently. Even Franz was like, so for this rendering, we use the Model Y. But it's not the Model Y. And I was like, okay. So what is it? Well, next time. We don't want to reveal it all now.
That's a story for another day.
Yeah. Pretty much. That's
what it was. Do you think
this
is a byproduct then of people asking Tesla to be transparent and Elon saying, okay, I guess we'll be more transparent, but then also pushing back on we can't be too transparent to where we're showing CAD drawings that we have on our computers right now.
Yes.
Just because
I think this feels like a board decision to me. It doesn't feel like a singular vision. It doesn't feel like one person's idea. Like, hey, I know we have the annual shareholder meeting and the earnings calls, but we should also do an investor day. It wasn't like one guy. It was like, okay, well, the board thinks that there's a lot of people on Twitter complaining about Elon, and we don't want to look bad. So let's all get together and everybody can kind of talk about what they do for the company, and we'll thank each other and we'll go out and say, thank you for your work. It's really hard work. We appreciate you all. And that's fine if you want to pat yourselves on the back, but just 5 hours, people. Come on, you talk about the best process is no process, and then you do that. Like the best meeting is no meeting.
Absolutely.
So I feel like same with Apple. If you're having a live stream and you're sending out invites for Tesla, it was 2 months in advance they sent out invites. It was like, you should have something to unveil. And to me, this means that whenever they unveil the third gen vehicle, they're going to have to repeat a lot of this stuff again. They're going to have to say,
oh my God.
So, here's the new design. It uses a 48-volt architecture and then a new powertrain.
Stop me if you've heard this before.
Yeah, it's going to have to continuously repeat what we already know. So I guess Tesla doesn't have a PR department. Maybe that explains why the PR is so bad.
I don't think those things are for us, though. You know, that repetition of them repeating everything. I
But
have
who's
to
it for is my question.
I have a feeling it has to do with news articles. I think that's like people don't click and read the articles more will now than they've done before when they would just read a headline and that's the article. I think this repetition, and I'm just going to keep saying it until we get it in your little heads, people, that we are doing these things and it's going to be great long term, and they just repeat, because I think that they are resurfacing the news again. Not new information, just let's put the good PR that the articles are going to write about us right at the top. Oh, what's going on in March? Boom, here you go. And then it'll happen again whenever they do the third gen with the vehicles. I mean, like, nothing lately, from my takeaway, has been new information unless it's a version of like Berlin heart or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, unless you see something. And even then we take it all with a grain of salt. Hey, what if Cybertruck had a different color? Oh, that's something we could do. Oh, confirmed. confirmed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I just feel like just the redundancy of it all is not for us. It's for those publications that are going to write about it, and just so they can have something to report, because it kind of forces the journalists to talk about it again. Today or last night.
That's a good point.
He said this, and instead of, so there's the 5-hour information where if the employees want to be there, they pat on the back themselves and 5-hour round table. Good job. But then it also forces the journalists to condense it, or a tweet. All these tweets will get very condensed. And guess what? That's how I took the information, through tweet condensed version. So I didn't have to more or less waste 5 hours. Sometimes they throw a Hail Mary out there, and you do get something unique, like the bot or something. Hey, look at this. Look at that. It's kind of cool, right? And you get to see it in live action. Oh, cool. Gigafactory Texas coming online, and there's rolled out. Oh, here's the Cybertruck. Oh, and he shows it. Doesn't open with any handles. Or like, so you get the little clips right there in the moment that might be more impactful if you're there in person, but that's not really for us. I feel it's for the journalists. Put this on your front page news report thing tomorrow morning on your website, or we'll see it on the tweet, and then we'll bury the lead about Twitter or something. They'll just be like, here's what Tesla's talking about. And then after enough of that happens and time passes, people move on from the complaints that they have, and hopefully the real incentive is that we've instilled it, trusted back into these investors. That's my theory.
Well, if the stock goes down afterwards, then does that...
You want less events.
Does that make it a...
It always drops, doesn't it?
It does, but to me, that's evidence that it doesn't matter whether or not they have these or don't. Because if they have the event and then the public perception doesn't change because you get a bunch of headlines that say Investor Day disappoints or Tesla didn't talk about what we wanted them to. It's again my biggest issue with Tesla, which is setting false expectations. If you hype it up and and especially in Tesla YouTube sphere, everyone's talking about we're gonna see this, and everyone's gonna see
the moon.
To the moon, and everything changed. Everything's gonna change
that was
once
the day
Tesla has Investor Day. So you get all your crowds riled up, and then they watch it, and nothing you talked about happens.
Yeah.
So the general consensus is, okay, that was a waste
at the
of time.
point of sounding redundant. Then I would tell you that don't. Same thing as I said in the tech podcast. Too much press. Then knock it off. Don't dilute it, because you're taking away the magic of it. Now at this point, it's like I was excited for the first battery day. What, in 2020 or 2019? I was excited about that. 2020. I was excited about battery day. Let's do that. Since then, and realizing what it was, and same thing with Investor Day and everything else today. It's like, okay, I'm starting to see the trend here. Where it's not another Cybertruck event or a Model 3 or now it's more about the nuances of it. You're killing the magic of what a live stream could mean for Tesla. So, and that notion, then I would say absolutely stop doing it. You're right. It's not benefiting anything. I'm just trying to put my head in their headspace. Here's what they might think. But you're right. Stock falls. Doesn't change anything. If we're talking short term.
If there were like results because of that, I would be willing to concede and say, okay, I get the point of it. I just don't see the result. I feel like the people that were invested are still invested, and the people that weren't aren't, and they'll probably continue to not be. So, sorry. I'm actually having a Tesla mobile service visit right now, and he sent me a message, so I'm trying to see what he said.
Very moment.
This is my first time.
Cool.
But yeah. Anyway, I think your explanation of the motivation is correct. I think they should look more at the overall outcome at the end of the day. Like, if this isn't resulting in a huge push, or there's not a lot of people that feel confident afterwards about the company, then why bother? But I mean, there was, like I said, I won't say it was a complete waste of time because there was some new information. I just thought it was really, really buried. Like, getting the powertrain down to $1,000 for a motor. That's really cool. The Cybertruck's going to be 48 volts. We know that now. We didn't know that before. Okay, that's good for efficiency. And Tesla switching to their own in-house controllers, that's going to help bring the cost down, and the wires won't be as expensive because you don't need to pump as many amps through them as you did with 12 volt. So there's good stuff in there. Did you catch Dave Lee's video about the reason behind Giga Mexico?
Mm-mm.
I thought he did like a 5-minute video, and it was more interesting to me than all of Investor Day because all these people were interviewing Tesla executives afterwards, and the executives were spilling all kinds of details that wasn't in the presentation that I thought was really important. I was like, oh, well, that's the kind of new information I want. Like, basically, they had the whole presentation, and then there was like a 5-minute intermission where nothing happened. They just play dance music. And then 5 minutes after they come back, they go, oh yeah, Giga Mexico's a thing, by the way. And we'll build the next vehicle there. Questions. But that was it. It wasn't like, why did you choose Mexico, or what is the purpose of building vehicles in Mexico, or where is the market serving? And Dave Lee got to talk to those executives, and in his video he said that the purpose of Giga Mexico is not what a lot of people thought it was, why to me it was super. Yeah, it's more for Latin America. They're like, their goal with Giga Mexico is not to build cheaper cars and then bring them to the US, kind of like what Ford does and what other automakers do. They're like, no, our point is to bring this cheaper car, whatever it is, they won't tell us. We got to take the blanket off. Whatever that cheaper vehicle is, the third gen, we need to take that and bring it to markets that we're not currently serving, primarily in, Brazil, Mexico, Chile. So there's all these countries in Latin America that they're like, we can't really sell the Model 3 and Y there because they're too expensive, and that price point of a vehicle doesn't really do all that well there. So that's why him just having that little conversation completely changed my fundamental outlook on the event, because I was like, okay, Giga Mexico's not for us. That explains a lot, because that to me means, okay, it's not trying to just build robo-taxis that they can launch in the US, which is where FSD Beta is mostly present. In fact, if it's mostly going to be serving Latin America, and we know how slow the rollout is for FSD Beta here, not to mention other countries, that means that the third-gen vehicle is probably not going to be a completely autonomous. It's going to be something cheaper, and probably, depending on what they start with, which I still like speculating on, because I could see them going multiple ways. It could look very much like just a smaller Model Y, just a more compact version of the sexy lineup. Or it could be a smaller pickup, because those sell really, really well in Latin America. Like, the two best-selling vehicles in Latin America are basically, they're both vehicles that you can't get in the US, interestingly enough, but they're like cheaper versions of the Tacoma, like smaller size pickups. Those are the best sellers. Nice. So I was like, okay, now you got the gears in my head turning a bit about like why they chose Mexico and what Mexico's purpose is going to be. And that's, in my head, how you prevent the Osborne. how do you not kill Model 3 sales by introducing a $25,000 car? You don't sell it in the same market. We can't buy that car. It's not for us, That opened up my head a lot. I was like, okay, I get what their mindset is, but again, I had to get that from Dave Lee, not from the investor, because they didn't want to talk about it.
It makes sense that you want to have a major factory in every continent if possible, even Antarctica. Yeah, Antarctica too.
Mm-hmm.
True. But
makes no sense to put manufacturing in Antarctica unless it's for other reasons, not for automobiles.
What are you talking about?
Hey, you don't know what's going on.
What are those
there.
penguins going to drive?
No, I don't know explicitly.
There could be a whole nother life going on down there, and us normies just don't even. Yeah. Anyway, so
There is.
the great resign has begun, starting in Antarctica, but having something for Latin America and they have been, I would say like neglected, but South America as a whole kind of seems to get the trickle down effect, and this metaphor from North America, everything what's happening effectively in the United States, where if you were to able to put a cheaper vehicle and just a factory down there, that has to have the same effect, I would think. Think how like smartphones and everything that was coming out of India, and how like that's an untapped market, and people want to get away from Foxconn because they realize that no, India is where it's going to be at. And sure enough, a production boom has happened over there. I can see a lot of business opportunities also, not just a cheaper vehicle, but so much more business opportunities for the rest of this hemisphere, just for having one more streamline on the outside of the U.S. Ultimately, we're good. Like America's good. We got our systems set up, and it's all about the ramp up and meeting their deadlines.
I would like a cheaper car, but I get why that's not the priority, because
they don't make
the
what
compacts, they don't sell very well here, like compared to in other places.
Mm-hmm.
And here the best-selling vehicles are all F-150, Silverado, and SUVs, which Tesla makes. Crossovers, and the Cybertruck hopefully is coming soon. So they kind of got the U.S. market covered in that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it feels like once, no matter what type of vehicle it is, if it all has the same software, everyone gets the same experience. Everyone gets the same network, the charging stations. Everyone gets the same, mass updates of, hey, we need to push this out. Like, it modernizes a lot to do with these vehicles, and it's just cool. That's a cool, bigger picture thing. I try often, and I also fail often, to think bigger than America, the United States. Think outside of what causes a growth or a big boom to happen, and their needs aren't the same as the Americans. We're pretty spoiled in that sense that we have what we need, and people just like bigger is better, and that's just the headspace that we work off. But a lot of people do need those compact vehicles. We talked about it before. The Cybertruck just wouldn't effectively be as useful in Europe with those small windy roads and stuff like that. It just that's gonna be a headache to navigate. It can be done, but those guys would probably take, what do we call it, the Model 2? Like, they'll take something smaller if possible. Especially if it's cheaper. I was talking to somebody, I don't remember who, but they were talking about import costs and how much it actually cost then at the time if they were to buy, say, like one of our vehicles, and they bring it over there. And they're like, I can't afford this. It's so much more expensive. And it's like Tesla's like in each section of the world, they're trying to hit that mark. Like, all right, then let's bring the line to them and just sell locally, directly, the same way. Give them the American experience. Let them feel, hey, this is modern, this is cool, and it's doable. And bring everyone, like, that's why I love these EVs in general. Like, from a bigger philosophical stance, it's like we're just trying to modernize a world that doesn't have to be so far behind when we have the technology, and it shouldn't just be in specific regions, whether it's China or Japan or North America. Like, we could really push it out and equalize it. That's kind of cool. I hope it's as successful as they're planning it to be, and how I would like it to see. And then as an investor, it's like, then there's your ROI. It doesn't hurt sales, So
No.
yeah.
If anything, it'll only hope. Well, I guess there's a lot of geopolitical problems doing this, but being able to tour all the way from like the top of Canada or Alaska all the way down to Chile, and if you have a problem with your car, specifically the Tesla, you could even take it to Brazil and get it serviced by Tesla because they have a presence there, or they would, and stuff like that. Or even just the presence of Giga Mexico would elicit more supercharging stations down in both Mexico, Latin America, everywhere down there. So hopefully, my hope is that it just opens the gates further for the North Americans and the South Americans. So that way it's that much more of a cohesive unit as the Americas in a way. I don't think it's the key. I think there's a lot of different geopolitical stuff to figure out there, but it is nice to know that if I want to go check out Mexico or Brazil, I could drive a Tesla and it'll be somewhat familiar, and I know it'll be a safe and reliable car. But
Yeah.
It only makes me more excited about what's going to come out of Monterey at Giga Mexico.
Do you think it'll be a compact? Is that the way you interpreted it?
I think it's going to be that plus what you did the video on, possibly just the international pickup, yeah, or the international Cybertruck.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's the Giga Texas on the other side of the border in a way. So right now Giga Texas is making Model Ys and it's going to make Cybertrucks. So Giga Mexico is just going to do the same, but it's not going to be Model Ys or Cybertrucks. It's going to be
cheaper. Yeah.
It's going to be the cheaper versions of them.
The Model Z or whatever.
Oh, please, no. What was it? Someone in Drew's Discord was like, how are these new vehicles going to help spell the word sexy cars? In which my response to it was, we're kind of done with that, or at least that's what Elon was kind of alluding to, is now we're just going more towards generic names. So that only opens up the question of what will these vehicles be called, especially with the leaked picture of a Mazda CX-30, but with the Tesla lights and other things on it.
I saw that.
Would that just be the Tesla Fastback or Hatchback or whatever? Not even giving it a name, not even like anything like Model Y or Model Z, just the hatchback, and then
because if you rewind that question,
stop it. The answer's in there. It's called the Tesla. Yeah.
The Tesla. Yeah, that's it. But,
Sexy Cars has already been spelled out, though, hasn't it? Because C is Cybertruck, A is ATV, R is Roadster, S is Semi. So you're done. There's the joke.
If we're ignoring the original Roadster, and then also Optimus, I guess, except that Optimus kind of came after Sexy Cars. But yeah. So, yes. Anyway. Yesn't. An ATV technically isn't a car, but is a vehicle.
Yeah, I'm glad that after all these years, we're still really prioritizing that what we're spelling. Like, that's all that matters. Like, this has to be an acronym of some kind.
Because they're not giving us anything else.
You got to stick to the basics.
But Mike brought up a good point about, building all of the different components, painting them separately, and putting in the interior pieces before it all comes together once. And I guess there were, I forget who it was, but there was a panel, a bunch of people that were at Investor Day that were talking to the executives, and they said they didn't confirm anything, but they were doing the wink wink to them about like, so how are you going to assemble this vehicle, so many different places in the paint cosmetically, how does it match with each other? And they basically said something like, paint is expensive. Like, we don't like paint around here. So I took that as it would make a lot of sense for the first third generation vehicle to not require paint. If the goal is just to be cheapest possible EV we've ever made, so we're taking out the rare earth materials, we're switching to in-house controllers. It's like, if you're cutting all these corners here and there, are you still going to be like, yeah, but it needs paint after you've already...
You go paint it yourself. You paint it.
Yeah, you can wrap it with anything you want. It can try to be a bit more cyber-inspired. I don't know if that means it'll be made of steel, but it might just be made of some other material that
Aluminium.
is durable. I don't think that will age very well. But yeah, something that's not paint, doesn't require paint. If they could skip that whole process,
Ceramic.
it would be interesting. But again, the whole
One giant watch.
presentation feels incomplete because you can't show us what it actually looks like. So
Don't you
that's
hate
why-
that? Don't you hate half information? Like, go
Yeah.
all in. If you tell me something,
we're going to go into detail, but not too much.
you got
detail.
something to say, say it. Don't clickbait me on Lifetime and like, oh, well, here's more, and then do the old bait and switch. Like, tell me what you got to say. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Since-
So to me, like, they are already in the process of building a production line for the Cybertruck. And that's already 48 volts and more in-house controllers and everything. So it's like, why not just scale that down? Because, even at Battery Day, there was reference to the more world version, smaller Cybertruck that would appeal to different markets in different countries outside of the U.S. I was like, that's what's selling the best in Latin America. So if that's what Giga Mexico is prioritizing, then doing a smaller, cheaper, more basic Tacoma-sized pickup, that makes sense to me. But when I ran the YouTube poll on it, that was like the last place. No one voted for pickup. No one thought that was coming. So I'm like, okay, well, community is just sold on compact for some reason. I don't exactly know why, but everyone's just like, no, it has to be a compact car. That's the only way.
Compact equals cheaper, more affordable. Excuse me. Compact
I guess.
equals more. Think about removing the power brick from the iPhone so you can stack more on a pallet. It's that.
This is just like that.
Yeah, compact has always been, like, you think about rentals, right? Like, you want a compact economy car, or you want a mid-size sedan, you want a luxury, you want like, they give you all these different options, but compact is the cheap one. It's small,
So-
and just get you from A to B.
So you're telling me the compact is likely not coming in ultra red?
Well, you can spec out a piece of crap and still have it, be what it needs to be. I don't know. To be honest, the closest akin I could give that to is the redundancy of doing something stupid on an iPad 9 and or an iPad 10, and you're like, yep, that and you could really put in a couple grand on that, and it's still crap. At the end of the day, it's still a turd. So maybe
I don't think it'll be crap, but I don't think it'll be similarly to the Model 3 unveil, the $35K price. Now it's like, well, tax credit though, when you really weigh the tax credit, I'm like, yeah, that's not what they said. In which case, should we assume 25K car means 25K after incentives, which means it's actually a $32,000
Yes.
car, in
So
which
you-
case
yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
probably
less
a good
exciting.
Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue as good.
No.
Speaking of tax
That's-
credits,
But before you get into that, I just wanted to make my last point that because Tesla hasn't shown consistency with reaching their targeted pricing whenever they talk about another vehicle, like Model Y is going to start at $39K. Nope, that didn't happen. Cybertruck's going to start at $40K. Nope, I doubt that's ever going to happen. When they talk about the passenger car, the next gen being $25K, forgive me for being skeptical, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Tesla knows from experience in entering new markets, they can make whatever they want and it'll sell. They've got plenty of margin to wiggle with, and they have the third gen vehicle with all of their new manufacturing approaches will probably have even more margin than the Model 3 does, which means just like all their last vehicles, you can start it high and you work your way down as you need more demand. And the best sellers in those regions are pickup trucks. So that's why, to me, it was like, start with that. And if you can't find buyers, then you work your way down and offer cheaper trims. But I don't think they'll have a hard time finding buyers for that personally. And I think they could probably get away with charging $35, $40K for a smaller Cybertruck looking thing. And that will, based on how popular the Cybertruck is here, I'm sure it'll still be popular there. I don't see the need for the compact, but it's just weird because the community doesn't agree with me on that at all. So I'm like at ends with the audience. But Have you had a delivery day update, Randy? Please.
So, what time we got? 45 minutes in? Okay. No, I'm going to hijack
Keep
that
it under
time.
3 hours if possible.
I'm going to hijack that time. I went on a road trip that was over 1,000 miles. I routed it. Looks about right. 1,040 miles. I was gone for
Randy's
11
got a
days.
big story.
I was gone for 11 days. Out of that 1,040 miles, that doesn't include side stops to anything or even back and forth zigzag. I'm just giving a rough estimate here. But during that time, I have effectively concluded all my free supercharging miles that I had.
Oh,
Congrats.
I forgot about those.
So for the first time in my life, I got a bill. And
Wow. What's that like?
for those days, for 11 days of nothing but supercharging when appropriate, I have spent $289.23.
Whoa.
For 11 over 1,000 miles. I'd say it's closer
Dang.
to 1,100 miles for 11 days.
Okay.
Jeez.
Those types of, like, it takes somewhere between $40 and $50 a tank to fill up the Yaris that we would have, which is a compact car. So it's supposed to be even better with miles, but it still takes somewhere between $40 and $55 at the pump when the light comes on to full.
Jeez.
And
And what's the range on the Yaris? I want to do some math.
I would say conservatively, let's say 350. And
Okay.
if we're going to be a little bit more loose, closer to 400. Easy, I would say 400 maybe. So because it's a 1.4 milliliter. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. The horsepower is
Milliliter?
not aggressive. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's very small.
I'm changing my brain here, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the big. It's not a V6. It's not a high power intense car. So yeah, somewhere between 350 and 400 miles. I would say, saying that we're driving maybe like 70 miles or 75 miles per hour. That sounds about right. I would say, even when eventually, because now not free supercharging is, unless you have those old cars or you ordered one of those, within that time frame in 2021 or 2022. Excluding that, everybody else gonna have to pay for their car. I was really impressed about the habit I caught myself in driving a long range Model 3. I'd never, but maybe one time, just to give me peace of mind, I never charged it to 100%. I would always stop at 80. And most of the time when I look at I was crunching numbers when we first started the episode today, and I was like, the most I spent at a pump or a station was $20 for that session. That was the most. On average, I was looking more like somewhere between $14 and maybe $16. And that's me taking the car down to like 13, 11% and getting it up to 80. On average, I'd stop at 80. Very few times I'd go to 85, 90. And one time I went to like 99. I was like, I'm watching the price just keep bill. I'm like, just pull it. Just pull it. We'll be fine. But I learned new habits that I wasn't mindful of before because I had the veil of free miles to run up. So I kind of just like, whatever. And it was a very different experience now that I was like, I'm paying for it. It made me practice different techniques on the road to try to optimize the graph to stay in the green. When you're driving, you can see the little, it goes down into the orange if you're using up more energy than predicted. It stays green, or it goes above the line of green. And I'm like, oh, let me try this. And then at the pump, I would always, when I caught on to it, it's like, I'm just going to pull it at 80. It charge, stops at 80, and almost every time I would be more than enough in the proximity of another charging station if I needed to get to it. So range anxiety wasn't really a thing for me on that. I did not see. I started documenting. I have a lot of B-roll, but now it feels muted and on deaf ears here that I did not see a single charging station section with them trying to roll out, the new update, like, oh, hey, non-Tesla compatible. None of that. I went to different charging stations. Even when I was staying in Florida and I was zigzagging the area, I went to a new place every time, and I didn't see any of them. I was like, man. So at that point, like by day 4 or 5, I'm like, what am I I'm just documenting different sites here, and I got nothing to report on. So I feel like I had an idea of a video that's probably not going to happen now because I don't have anything to report on that. And I was so adamant, like, I'm traveling the whole coastline. I got to see something. Nothing. Man. And I thought for sure I was going to see it in Miami. Nope. Well, I am impressed with the amount of savings that I was able to really calculate. I did not do a conversion like, oh, what would it have been like if I took the Yaris? I don't know. But I do know it would not have been under $300. There's no way in hell that was not going to happen. I'm saving money while saving energy. Like there was something cool about this trip. It was very long. I put in the hours, and my goodness, did my family feel it. We were very uncomfortable. Those are long drives, but for what they're worth, it was a very efficient drive. All this to say that with the Model Y, I can only see it being so much more of an experience, having a bigger cabin space. I know we're not going to have the same mileage range of it, but it doesn't matter. Like, seeing how many charging stations have actually been rolled out, and I have to step outside of my circle to see the network at large. Man, charging the range does not matter. It is absolutely 100% about the charging speeds. And this preconditioning, the warm up the battery thing, like makes all the difference, right? Like if I want to get the most optimized speed, I would. There's a point I was documenting that when I was looking at the kilowatt hours here, I don't want to get the number wrong, and I know it was only for a moment, but I think it went up to like 226 kilowatt, 907 miles an hour, and that was obviously not sustained. That was just like it amped it. But I'm gonna send a screenshot to you guys into Discord. This was me sitting at 24%. I was already plugged in for a minute, but the lower down, like the more I used the energy of the battery, the more efficient the charge had become. So the longer I was using, or if I was like at 60%, let me go charge, I was not doing me any favors. 60 to 80. That was it was hurting me. When I got down to under 20, it was like, juice this baby, just juice it, and it was really cool to see it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I know it wasn't sustained, but it was interesting to it really brought it up. So if I'm trying to maximize speed, get back on the road, because in context, I tell you guys, our fear with getting another EV was like, I don't want to keep Sage just sitting and he's fussy. The most optimal time is that 20 to 80%. And that 80% wasn't even truly necessary, but it would say ETA 10, 15 minutes, you'd be back on the road if I was to go off of that. That was more than enough time. Everybody go inside, take turns, go use the restroom. All right, we're good. Need to get some water or a snack, whatever. Let's go. It was not that bad at all. So
Good.
That was my road trip experience.
I'm happy to hear that.
I loved it. Now that I know I'm paying out of pocket, I actually don't mind. I'm looking forward to future trips whenever they may come. But after being gone for 11 days, it just feels good to be home. While we're on leave, I'm like, man, how cool would it be that we just get notified, hey, we got a VIN. I open up the app. As much as even recent, like today. Man, I got on the account, and I'm happy to report nothing.
Dang.
Nothing.
This is a race right now because yeah, the IRS still has not issued guidance of which vehicles qualify and which ones don't, which means if you take delivery soon, you could still get the full credit, but also at any time the IRS could issue the guidance and say if it qualifies or not. So I'm hopeful. The fact that it's March 10th, I thought because they said they would issue guidance in March, that meant March 1st. That's what Tesla was saying. Now it's March 10th, they still haven't issued it. So I'm like, fingers crossed. The IRS
crossed.
is as slow as the DMV.
I
And
hope.
they don't. I've never wanted the government to move more slowly. And if they just don't issue guidance, then you could still get the full credit, which would be awesome. But I'm sorry because you're probably impatient after all this time.
I'm worried. No, I'm not going to say the thing.
He's worried about
I'm
the Model
worried
Y.
that
Yeah.
I'm worried it's going to be ready when I'm in Colorado in a couple weeks. That's going to
Oh.
that's going to like just kind of like low key tick me off. I'm like, "Oh no," cuz
That would suck. How much? Ooh. Yeah. I was going to say, how much have you spent on the Colorado trip? But
the tickets are booked.
I understand.
Yeah.
I know they're booked, but if it's a difference of
I can't refund them cuz I'm using like points and stuff like that. These are locked
yeah.
in. And furthermore, like given the context of the trip, like that has to take priority. I just don't want it
I
to
know.
be. I don't want it to. I give it to me. Can we get the VIN issued now, please? I reset. I'm on the account right now. I reset. I'm like, okay, payment is good. All this is good. All this is fine, but I just have a reservation number, and we're frantically refreshing our apps all the time because we just we want that credit so bad. It won't. The $7,000 doesn't hurt, but it sure as heck helps. Like we shouldn't base it off of a $7,000 adjustment.
You should still get $3,750 even if it's after the
I
guidance.
know, but
It would be nice to
when
get
we're
the full.
doing the budget. When you make the pitch,
For sure.
and you're like, it has to
Right.
pass the House and Congress, right? When
Right.
you make the pitch, and I like to provide
course.
best case scenario and worst case scenario. We know what the worst case scenario is, and the truth is we'll probably fall somewhere in the middle. But man, when you realize that the best case scenario is attainable, it's right there, and we're ready. Like we're on our side. Like call me, text me, I'll be right there. I'll stop what I'm doing right now. Gotta go, guys. See you next week, and then go pick it up. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's do this. But that, it's not that I'm impatient. It's like
It's the not knowing part.
We're
the
playing with
anticipation.
house money. Yeah.
And you're like, when you know that something could happen at any time, but it's like a period of months. Yeah, I know exactly how that feels. It sucks.
This road trip has like solidified how confident I am about wanting the Model Y over a different electric vehicle, given the efficiencies that I was able to experience with the trip, because that's the biggest deal. Obviously, it'd be fine with the day-to-day going around town and just 110 outlet, plug my car, and that would be that. But outside of that, where we like, let's really test the waters and let's really push what this vehicle could do, I just don't see another car that can actually like compete in the same way, just by sheer mass of the infrastructure established. And that trip now is like, I could do that again whenever I want, or ideally, hopefully, next year, same time, we make a routine out of it, or say we want to drive back to California, whatever we want to do, but have a more comfortable cabin experience with it. Like, I'm so ready for that. And like, where's my VIN number? Darn it. Where is it?
Yeah. We're counting down the episodes here. This could be the last episode you don't have one. Think of it that way. This is a end of an era potentially.
Again,
Don't do that.
Hopefully it's not
Don't
next
give me hope.
episode.
But yeah.
Yeah. I'm hopeful for you. At least from following the Hardware 4 rollout, I feel like you even if your car doesn't have Hardware 4, you're not missing out on much from what I can see.
I'm not shocked. The Model Y won't have FSD. We don't care about that stuff. That is strictly the most family efficient vehicle we set our eyes on, and that's it. I mean, let's make this next 10 years count with whatever standard connectivity means and assess where we're at from there. Because I don't even know what that like. What I have to pay $15 a month or something? I don't know, but
that will be interesting to see once that standard connectivity is no longer enabled.
You don't tell me you're going to discontinue it for after this date forward. Don't say that and then not tell us, like, give us a projected price range. And I know prices will change, but you give us price range for Cybertruck. And we know that ain't going to be, like, just give us something. At this rate, it's the same time of distance, Cybertruck and connectivity charging. So I'm just curious. I want to know what that, like, $10 a month, like annual plan of $80 a year. How much is a subscription to Sirius XM? Is that like $65 a year? Like, is that what I got to pay?
Honestly, I don't even think Tesla knows, based on how swamped their software team is right now. Like, they still haven't gotten park assist on the new vehicles without ultrasonic sensors. And they have rolled out the basic, autopilot functionality for cars with hardware 4 on the Model S and X. Seem to be the only vehicles with hardware 4 so far. So they had to work on that, but we also learned through conversations at Investor Day that the Semi has all of the hardware needed for autopilot, for navigate on autopilot and full self-driving, but none of the code. So you can't activate autopilot, but it doesn't, according to Tesla, it doesn't need anything extra at this point. So that's just, the software team has a growing stack of to-do lists, like, can you guys do this? Can you guys do this? Can you do this? Yeah. And there's probably going to be more things, and probably all their priority is on FSD beta version 11. I don't know if you've seen anybody try it out lately, but it's exactly what I thought it would be. It's like, that's a little bit better. Are we done? No. Oh God, no. But it's better. It's like a 10-mile hike to me. That's what a robotaxi feels like. It's like a 10-mile hike, and we're watching like a snail go down this path. And it's like, and we're going, whoa! You got it, boy! You got it! And wow! Look how far he got! And we've been watching this snail for the past 5 years, and we're like, look how far it's gone! You were over there, and now you're here. But
he's gone like 100.
I had a complete. I had a complete autopilot freakout last night, actually.
Oh.
It was kind of scary. It was lightly raining, but not hard. I've used autopilot in the absolute downpour going 75 miles an hour. I know it can handle better. And I would turn it on, a couple seconds go by, and then that's the loud one. Not the subtle, like, but the when it has take over in the red steering wheel and everything. And I was like, okay, what? I turn it off. I look around. What? Did it see something we didn't? Nothing. It's like, we're on this giant highway, very straight in the middle of the dark. No one's around, not even other cars. We're just like, okay, we'll try this again. Turns it on. 5 seconds later, does the exact same thing. So we're like, oh God, we were already getting it serviced today. Headrest was coming off a little bit on the passenger side, but apparently they fixed it. I haven't seen it yet, so I'll have to report back.
Okay.
But this was our first mobile service visit ever. They came to us in a black Model 3. So this is the first time 2 Model 3s were in the driveway. I was like, whoa! But we'll find out how bad it was, or if they actually fixed it. But yeah, tried it again. Turned off immediately, and I was like, okay, maybe it's autopilot. I'll just use cruise control. So I just used cruise control for a couple seconds. That booted off, and it just says unavailable. Learn more. We click learn more. It says visibility might be bad. It was like, I've used autopilot. I've used autopilot on this exact same stretch of road in the exact same worse circumstances like 50 times, and it just didn't want to turn on. And I waited like 10 minutes. And I tried it again, and then it was fine. But I was just... You hear about the hyperbulls all the time saying, it's so good, robotaxi are coming, it's only a matter of time. And then you experience that, and you're just like...
Welcome to my nightmare, Drew. This is what I was complaining about. And sure enough, I had a lot of more of what you're describing on my road trip than the it's so good. I did more cruise control than probably autopilot. And
Oh, really? Did you have phantom braking?
yes, yeah. And I had to stop doing that because
And you have full self-driving beta, right? You
I
have
do, but what good is that if it keeps braking so aggressively and it's like waking up my wife and kid in the back? I'm like, oh my, this is terrible. It's making like Brittany got nauseous and she's like, can you please, whatever you're doing, can you just please stop? I know that's not you driving. I can tell it's not you driving because it's driving like a jerk. Can you just not do that? I'm like, absolutely. And
it's gotten to the point for me when if it's like we're accelerating towards a stoplight, it's like we're going 65 or 70 and there's a stoplight ahead. I just turn it off. I know it can stop. I'm more worried about what it will do than actually hitting what's in front of me, which I think is a bad sign. Yeah. I was like driving my mom back to the airport a couple weeks ago, and there's a big stretch of freeway and a car has to cross a bunch of lanes. And it's so far away, like it's not even close. But I just start getting nervous and sweating because I know this car's not smart enough to realize that it's not a threat. It just sees something in front of it and goes, oh my God, something pulled in front of us 500 miles away. So it slams the brakes and we're going 65 down to like 40 and I have to take over and accelerate again. And there's a car behind me. He's like, what's going on? What are you doing? I got coal rolled for the first time the other day. That's never happened.
Congratulations.
I was kind of honored. I was like, was that for me?
Right.
Oh, he doesn't like me. Cool. I'm like, dude, you're in California. I think you're going to be rolling a lot of coal if you do this to every Tesla you see on the freeway. But yeah, I was just cruising and he just did the little black smoke thing and I was like, okay.
I had that happen. Yep, that's fun too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
East Coast too?
Yeah. No, they're like...
I just feel like their feet must be getting tired with how many Teslas have been delivered, right?
Transmissions are at least.
So many people are like trying to race me and I'm like, I'm just watching them just go, and they just go and...
Just wait for the Aptera. Man. We're driving those around. Oh, God.
You can't even coal roll me. I'm too low to the ground.
I'd say that you talk about like it's too dumb to realize that like that person's far and they're not a threat, and yet people are worried that AI is going to take over. Like that, come on, no way. This, like, it's such a weird like dichotomy here because I hate this FSD thing. I hate all of it. I don't regret it because I spent so little comparatively. I don't care for it.
As an investment, it was a good idea because your resale value now is great.
Fine.
You've got a $15,000 add-on.
Cool.
At least.
I hate it. I hate it.
It's like, even if nothing changed, even if you paid for full self-driving and never received another update, just the fact that it's worth $15K now makes that almost a good idea based on...
So, like, take that thing out back, shoot it, focus on things that matter. I hate it. With that, like, the Tesla's the best driving vehicle. I love my car. I love the minimalistic design, the comfort, the everything. Like, when I'm in control of my car, it's an 11 out of 10. The moment I go boom boom, 6 out of 10. I die. I hate it. And I'm tired of acting like it's the best. It's not. It's terrible. Don't spend $200 on it. Let there be a version 1. No more beta. No more phantom braking. Fix the problem. Stop selling this thing. Stop taking people's money. Because if something happens to my Tesla, I'm out $6,000.
This is Tesla's iPad OS.
Oh my God! Why did you say that?
Kind of is.
I don't know. I don't know how the beta is working for you, Mike, but like I've definitely watching the videos. I think it's the amount of time it's taken that's really rubbing off on me. Like I see progress. I watch the beta 11 videos and I see it performing better and driving on the highway now, single stack, and improved visualizations and stuff. But it's just like, if every tiny little stage of development takes 10 times longer than we think, then even with beta 11, I don't think we're close. I just don't think this is anywhere near.
What do you mean? By end of the year, Drew?
Right. It's just, we've been watching these videos for so long, and now I'm finding out. You guys didn't get beta 11, did you?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. See, you're my template, because there's some channels that are on the early access program, right? Where they get updates before everyone else who also paid for full self-driving, like you guys did. So I'm like, by the time beta 11's out, there's going to be 50 channels that have already posted, thousands of miles with it. So I can't really justify it as for the channel, I will test it out. Because it's like, no, I'm not going to be anywhere close to first mover advantage.
Right.
And I don't think my perspective on it is going to be anywhere that different from what other channels are already saying. So requiring the $200 for the month, to me, the $15K is a no question. Like, that's not even up for debate. It's like, I'm in the whole $200, and now I got to make that back with the time and effort of recording it, documenting it, editing it, posting it. If my channel was bigger, maybe I could justify it, but I'm telling you now, I don't make that much off of a video.
Yeah.
And I'm very confident, even if I did a FSD beta video, it would probably not make $200. And again, I would be posting it way after everybody else got it. Yeah. So it's kind of sad, because that's something I thought I would do before I got the car. I remember saying on the podcast and on streams and stuff, I'll subscribe to it a couple months out of the year to test out. Now it's gotten to the point, after watching the videos and still being like, yeah, it just tried to run into that pedestrian. We had to
awkwardly wave and all that.
Yeah, makes people uncomfortable, and I don't know.
You become the thing that you hate to say, but you become that guy.
And maybe part of it is I don't drive by myself hardly ever, and I think that's probably what Randy's experiencing. I have my wife in the car, or sometimes friends and family members in the car. And now that your, infant son is in the car, You're probably hypersensitive to any kind of bump or motion or hard brake, to where it's like, yeah, no, I am not going to try that again. If it does the phantom brake, it does something annoying, it's done for the rest of the road trip, or the rest of the car ownership, basically.
That's basically, you're right. The road trip after that, it's like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, we're done with this.
We're done.
And I am willing to experiment just to see, let's see how the car does with autopilot. Let's see how it tries here. If I'm the only one in the car, because I know I can take over at any time and I'm not in danger. Whereas other people in the car, they have to experience, is he going to take over when I want him to? Please take over now. Oh, he's not taking over, or this is making me uncomfortable. And everyone else in the car can't grab the wheel. Yeah. So there's an extra level of discomfort for everyone else, which is why I think you always see these YouTube videos of people testing it. They're like, wow, that was really good.
Look,
and then let's do it with the wife. And the wife is like, oh, God, stop.
Even if you can't take over the wheel, if there's a greater than 0% chance that my son's going to get hurt, nothing's worth that. And I remember doing very reckless things with the Model 3 stuff. I've never said publicly, because I just like, well, how can I push it? Let me see how I can push it. Let's try it. And I could have done some life-threatening stuff with the car before, and now it's like, optimize this thing for safety. If there was a way I can unsubscribe to the FSD beta program, get my money back, don't even adjust to what it is today, just give me my $6,000, I would do that, because it's nothing about it is worth it anymore, having a baby in the car. People have told me they disagree, but I'm happy for their experience. My experience has been, my tolerance level is anything greater than 0% chance of something that I can't control. My job is to take over the steering wheel, but still, I just increased an element of risk factor that doesn't need to be there as a licensed driver. And I signed the waivers. It's not worth it anymore. Randy in 2019 was like, let's do this, man. Let's go. Today, I don't. I don't even have an interest in trying it anymore. I've lost so much interest in it because it's you're implying, Drew. It's I already know what to expect. Marginal improvement, and each time new version has another marginal improvement, that means it's less and less of an improvement. Diminishing returns are absolutely a thing, and I just don't. That's not me anymore. I grew out of it. They took too long. Like with the Cybertruck and everything else, like they waited too long. They're not going to get the Cybertruck sell on us anymore, and I've grew out of the FSD hype. Again, love my Model 3.
I can't be hyped for something that long, I think is the problem.
The thing is, like, you promised the world, and I get it. Okay, let's taper the expectations a little bit, but you were not even at the tapered. We're like, I have not got $6,000 value out of it. I said at best maybe 3,000. I don't know anymore. The longer we wait, the smaller that value turns into about what you're getting out of it, because for every marginal improvement is marginally more worth the money I put into it. I am losing interest in value of what I would want to put money towards on something like that. And I can't risk it. I don't care because I can't risk it. When I'm driving in a big city, say Miami or Fort Lauderdale, no way. People are so mean on the roads. They try to race me. They try to, blow the smoke in front of me. Like, they do all this stuff. Like, and then you just got regular human error about people walking in the streets and they're jaywalking down a very busy road, and that's just what they do. And I'm like, I can't put even if it was just me. I'm not interested in feeling that jerk anymore, because I just added one more level of security that I need to be aware of, where if I was just driving, I'm already controlling the speed of the vehicle. I'm already aware of my surroundings. But now I have to worry about the computer too. You just added stress to the element that does not need to be there. And I just have a whole different outlook on the FSD thing. In concept, it's cool. It's cool prototyping and demoing, but it belongs in CES, and then take it out back and kill it. That's just where... That's where
How many things are being taken behind the barn at this point?
FSD.
I can just visualize Randy taking a hardware 4 computer behind a barn with a revolver or something.
Max, find a better way to have more efficient speeds, or do something that's like, hey, by this software upgrade, we were able to preserve 5-10 more miles to your range. That was cool. Like, stuff like that, ease of convenience of things, that's fun stuff. Hey, here's a cool little party trick for Christmas. Hit this thing, go outside, enjoy the light show. Here's Apple Music's now here, and now you could do Disney and HBO. But cool. Let's make this thing fun. When it comes to the operations of the vehicle, all these liabilities that I have to sign now have turned into red flags, where I'm like, yeah, no, I don't care anymore. And it's just like, that's how much risk are we putting it that now falls 100% on me legally? It's all on me now. So why do I want to assume that risk? I wouldn't do that with a stock. I wouldn't do that with the company if that was the stock. Why the hell would I do that with my life or my kid's life? I wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And so I stopped. Yeah. Adaptive cruise control. Nice. Cool. Let's do that. I'm in control of the steering, and then I can give my ankle a rest. That's the extent of my I'll let you do it. Everything else, no, I want to be the captain of this ship.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
But on a more positive note, I think, Mike, did you catch a lot of the Cybertruck walk-around footage from Investor Day? I saw the tonneau cover in action and all that. Did it excite you or disappoint you in any way?
It perplexes me, just in regards to how the tonneau cover is going to be better than what Rivian has attempted at, and then what other companies, I think, what was it? Was it Toyota or some other company also has a auto retractable tonneau cover, or an automated one like a garage door. And I think that one does okay. But of course, you don't hear bad things from Legacy Auto usually.
That's true.
I thought
those people aren't on Twitter.
Yeah, right. The new walk around footage is pretty entertaining. The wife and I sat down and watched it. I think we watched your video for a lot of the walk around stuff, just because you had it kind of right there. versus us trying to search
Well,
it
thank
out.
you.
So enjoy the extra view. But I'm honestly a fan of the square wheel. I kind of like it.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of people were.
I'm
A lot of people said they preferred that.
I'm not like necessarily butting heads with the idea of like it should just have the square wheel, the yoke sucks and all that. I think having 3 options for a steering wheel, I think, is more likely than getting any wheel options for the Cybertruck at this point. Just because they're going all in on the patents for those wheel hubs for the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
But the steering wheel, I was totally fine with. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it,
Okay,
especially
good.
after my experience with a yoke and with a regular round wheel. The amount...
Can I ask a specific reason why you like it? Because my issue with it was like I like the simplicity and the minimalism of the yoke because there's nothing up there. It doesn't, But I understood the frustration if you're backing things up or towing or whatever. You want to be able to like kind of let go and let the wheel slide between your hands. And I was feeling like with the woke, as we call it, whatever it is, that still doesn't let you slide through your hands, right? Because it's an asymmetrical shape. So like, what does that offer that the yoke doesn't?
It's a continuous border versus the yoke does not. It has a continuous. It's asymmetrical.
It stops.
And it stops at that point. Then you're trying to figure out where those I don't even know what you would call it. I guess I've got footage of it where I've kind of rested my hands on top of the
I saw
pins
that.
or whatever. I don't know what you want to call the top of the yoke, but basically with a woke
the grip
or whatever, it is a continuous grip. So even though it's not circular, you can still follow it with your hand, and yes, there's still spokes, but
you can feel for it without
you can still feel for it versus
look at it.
With the yoke, it's a giant rectangle that you're it could if you're thinking of like a circle and then putting a rectangle there, at least with a circle, when you're lowering your hand or trying to place your hand and you're not looking, you have a general idea spatially where it might be. With the yoke, it's a rectangle, so it could be on the long axis, it could be on the short axis. You don't know. It could also be on the diagonal where you're getting the maximum possible distance from the center of where it's rotating, and that's going to surprise you a little bit, or you might not get that at all, and that's still going to surprise you. So it's always a surprise. With the woke, or whatever you want to call it, it does have that circular symmetry still, but it's not a rectangle either, even though it is.
Yeah.
So
So would you still take a regular steering wheel over the woke, or do you like the woke more than a regular steering wheel?
I would opt for the woke, honestly. If you had the choice between the 3 different wheels that we've seen on Teslas, the regular wheel.
Yeah.
I guess if you're combining the SX and 3 and Y wheel together.
You wouldn't just take what you have on your Model Y and put it in the Cybertruck.
I don't think it's necessary necessarily, but like with the again, I'm more of like I'm an engineer who looks at who is a fan of utility. And so with a truck that originally did not have any heads-up display or what's it called? I keep on forgetting the name of it. Basically where you see the tachometer and all that.
Speedometer?
No,
driver display?
The gear, whatever. Doesn't matter. Anyways, it doesn't have a display right behind the wheel. So having a yoke there didn't make sense to me, just because all you're doing is just showing more dash. If there is a display there, then I think having a yoke there is perfectly fine. Or the woke, I guess, if you're adding I don't know. I guess it gets in the way.
But that's why I was curious, because there isn't a driver display. Exactly. Does that make you want the full steering wheel? But you're saying you'd still take a woke.
I would still take a woke. I mean, the woke is just the same as a circular steering wheel, but a little bit cyberfied in a way. It gives the Cybertruck that character. I think it's a nice middle ground that I like. It seemed like in your video you didn't like. I like it.
Everyone disagreed with me.
I like the middle ground because it makes the Cybertruck that more special with how it is as a vehicle, because there's going to be nothing else like it.
Super unique.
Yeah, super unique. So I think having this woke or whatever just solidifies that. Having a yoke, sure, why not? But like I previously said, there's some shortfalls that I would think of with just normal operation, even barring towing and hauling, just turns and all that. I recall with the Model S, when I was turning into parking lots and all that, I did have to be a little bit cognizant, but that was also my learning curve too. So there's a bias there, and also that learning curve. But I would think with a truck, you want to be very cognizant with just how much turn you're giving it, especially with the rear steering or the rear steering. You're able to get a tighter turn, but there's still that much more play that you can work with in trying to figure out how much you want to turn. So with like a more circular steering component, you have that play, you have that feel, especially with something being a large vehicle like a truck.
Yeah.
And yes, the Model S may have somewhat of a length there, but I guess
the same.
Yeah, the truck is big. There's a lot of blind spots that you might have to figure out. So having that variable basically minimized in terms of error is something that I value. I think that's what the woke does and what I view it as. But that's me. What about you, Randy?
Cool.
Since we haven't heard your opinion on the woke.
Well, you stalled long enough for me to skim the video. I had to go watch Drew's video, and I just fast forward saw the B-roll of it so I can look at it.
There's way better videos than mine for the record, but thank you.
No, give you the video.
I appreciate it.
Give you the watch time. I haven't seen it yet, so this was something I was not. This was completely off my radar. So, what I think about the woke, that's the first and last time I will say that out loud. I don't like that name.
I'm down for another name.
Yeah,
it could be the Cyber Wheel.
I will call it the Cyber Wheel. I'm okay with the Cyber Wheel because no other vehicle has that design, right?
We also have the Cyber Wiper.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that when there's news
I
about
think
the Wiper.
the Canoe has a Cyber Wheel.
It does have a Cyber Wheel. It's a little bit square.
Too bad the Canoe isn't a Tesla, because then it would take that name.
Neither exist yet, so we're good.
So the Cyber Wheel has gear stocks, though, right?
No.
I don't think so.
I have to look again. You have the video.
You
tell us.
Looking at it, I'm pretty sure it's the capacitive button like the SNX.
Well, then
But I need to rewatch it.
All right. Then I would probably go with the traditional steering wheel.
I'm starting to realize more and more what people mean by that, just because of capacitive buttons versus stocks. Like, stocks are something you like feel for.
Yeah.
And reach for, and buttons are something you have to muscle memory, which can be complicated when there's so many in one place, and they're not physical, right? They're capacitive on the SNX. So that's I'm not against having a way to select gears on the screen, but based on the polls I've run and stuff, I've seen a lot of people say they don't mind the yoke, but they don't want everything to be a button.
Right.
And I do appreciate and really like on the Model 3 and Y how simple that steering wheel looks. It's just, there's two little scroll wheels and that's basically it. And you can feel those, right? You don't have to look at them. You're just up and down, side to side, push in, whatever. And I'm sure I could get used to the yoke buttons, but still, it's like,
for the sake of just being different, I like, oh, hey, well, we simplify and put it on the steering wheel. I don't agree with. Luckily, neither does Tesla. Now they offer a regular steering wheel. You don't have to have the yoke, but it don't
still
have
no gear stocks.
No gear stocks, and that for me, like how I feel, I also find myself now putting my perspective of not just me but my wife as well, and what is realistic for her expectation of a vehicle just working. We have a standard, and we've had the standard for over a century. Don't screw with it just for the sake of being different. That, like, it doesn't really improve something. I don't know, but I expect if there was a gear down here, I expect when I go up, that better be park or reverse. If it's like, oh, do this, and now you're in third gear and you have to go down, that's gonna, like, there's a learning curve, and it's just like, it's unnecessary. How many times, let me ask you this, how many times have you got in your car that wasn't the Tesla, and you first go like this to the gear, only like, oh wait, nope, that's the windshield.
Me every
Thank you,
single
Mike.
time going into the ramp.
Me
It's
every
like,
time I
all
get
right,
into yards.
stock. Oh wait, no, it's a gear thing.
Imagine like I come right here like, all right, let's get out of here, and I go like, I'm like, that's the windshield.
Wipers, no.
Yeah, every time. So imagine doing that with something that's a little bit more important, like shifting gears. I'm not okay with a capacitive button when maybe I can relearn because it doesn't matter. It's a toy. And like, oh, well, just gotta learn new mechanics of it. But something's just like why the question is why? Why change it? If you say simplicity and just for the sake of like, oh, so that way you have clearer view. Well, we've seen that like, oh, well, having the yoke actually blocks some of your display where you can't just like look over your hand and the yoke, the holding of it is blocking some of the display where you would want to swipe if you wanted to have control of it, just assuming. And after my big old rant about just the software kind of irking me a little bit, I don't want it to try to predict what I'm doing because sometimes it's just wrong. And input equals error. Well, let me like don't do the wrong input then. I did a route that made me go all the way around just to make a U-turn to get back onto the freeway because it didn't understand. I was at an intersection. I'm like, dude, just turn left. And if I was doing FSD in the parking lot, boom boom, it would have executed all that. Well, input equals error, but your input is wrong. This like what you're doing is wrong. So stuff like that is like I just want that tactile. One less thing I don't have to look at. I'm okay with the infotainment center, something you have to make contact with and look and touch the screen. I will even give you the climate control. Even though I have mine set to auto, I'll give you climate control. That's fine. Give you that. When it comes to the operations of the vehicle and doing its sole true function of the vehicle, I'm more comfortable actually having something I can touch that doesn't involve my eyes like, boop, let's go. Like I want it to just like, boom, 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 take off, and you're off to the races. If this Cyber wheel does not have the yoke, then I don't care for it the same way I wouldn't opt for a yoke. If any of them give the gear stocks.
Yeah.
No. Well, I'm asking because the Cyber wheel doesn't have gear stocks. So it has the same problem as the yoke. I wouldn't want either of them. That is a learning curve.
The regular wheel doesn't have stocks either, at least from what we can see.
For the S and X?
The S and X, yeah.
Correct.
It doesn't come with stocks.
That's an issue. I'm
That's
happy.
why I didn't think it was that big a deal, because people were like, oh, they finally offered a full steering wheel option now. And I ran this poll with like 2,000 votes.
That's an issue.
And the least popular option was full wheel, no stocks. The more common options were full wheel with stocks, but then after that, the next ranking was some people wanted a yoke without stocks, some people wanted pretty evenly matched. Some people want a yoke with stocks, which Tesla doesn't make, and some people wanted the yoke without stocks. But
from what we can see, which was the Roadster, but
yeah,
that thing is stuffed in the closet with a blindfold.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
The what?
No mention
The what?
at Investor Day at all about the Roadster, sadly.
Thank you for your $250,000. The what?
So you're not a fan of just anything that is steering in this truck then, unless they
the Cybertruck as it stands, like it looks fine, but like aesthetically, I don't mind. I don't mind it having its own design language. It looks fine. I'm indifferent about it. But if I had to choose, if no Cybertruck comes with the gear stock and I have to pick one, then whichever one's the cheapest. You know what I mean? Like, hey, here's your options. Does one cost money? I'll take the one that it offers. But if they all offer, if none of them offer gear stocks, then it just makes me kind of feel a little bit more happy at getting the Model Y.
Yeah, I was going to say.
At the time that I'm
feels
getting
kind of off the table now. But did you guys catch the kind of, I don't know what you call it, exclusive interview with Franz that Matthew Donegan Ryan had about the Cybertruck?
No, I only caught the exclusive interview that Andrew Erickson caught with Chris. That was cool. Because we haven't talked about
that was a lot more
it.
interesting.
It was.
Yeah,
I love that one more.
I wish I could have been there.
This felt like a off-the-record conversation with Franz that he didn't really reveal much, but the Mac guy seems well-intended and nice, but he he's been hyping up that he had this information for the last 10 days because obviously it was at Investor Day and he didn't drop the video until today. But he's like, make sure you catch the premiere and everything. And, he's trying to build his audience up. I get it. But at the same time, I watched the premiere live with everybody. I was there. I was like, it's Cybertruck details. Even if they're small, I need to know what they are. And a lot of it was like, okay, they didn't really tell you much. They just they just kind of eyeballing things and interpreting what they said. But I do that too, so I get it. I'm a fan of that. And there were a few changes that I thought you guys should be aware of. Like for one, that the frunk doesn't open like the Lightning, which bums me out.
I thought that was I never thought about that, even when I think you made the video. I'm like, I don't think
it really looked like it did.
You're looking at a prototype's big seam that could be construed as it if you're looking for it. But I've always thought of it as it's just the top loader, kind of like a Model 3 or Y or S or X, I guess.
I could still be right. It's just the production model won't have that because I found out after I posted the video that you can't have the front-facing headlights on a moving piece.
No, but they can be under. So this is something that the F-150 got by because it keeps the sides while the middle goes up. But you can have cars like, oh goodness, is it a Nissan Leaf or is it something else? I forget. There's a commercial that's out there for like electric cars or whatever, like Legacy Autos. Like, look, you can just plug in the electric car, kind of like what Volvo had with the hybrid and all that. I think this is with like animated characters or whatever. But they had the back hatch open, but there's lights underneath, and there's many cars that can do this. So your theory can still technically stand. I just don't believe it. But you can have that whole entire thing come up. It's just you need to have lights.
But if underneath. You look at the,
but Tesla doesn't.
If you look at this. Right, but if the way the Cybertruck headlight, if those were to stay, then the point of having the whole frunk open would kind of be alleviated because there would have to be some structure to hold the headlights there. So having that extra space wouldn't help all that much.
Maybe you'd have some side structure in which then you'd have some LEDs that turn on just so that way you meet compliance and all that. But Tesla's never really been one to hide lights underneath lights or hide components.
Well, yeah, because the whole bottom piece that we're talking about moving, right, like the front face of it, that's all beneath the headlight beam.
Right.
So if you moved that, I don't know how you would do that without moving the front headlights.
You wouldn't. So there'd be lights.
You can't move the headlights for safety, like hazards or something. Is that the thing?
So you need to have.
I don't know what the law is, but. Like, you see how the bottom piece of the metal on the front isn't touching the hood?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. There's lights in there. Underneath
that's what they're... Well, that's what I'm trying to say is, like, those can't be on anything that moves, essentially.
Correct.
Is what the regulation is.
If you just have all of the metal come up, you can still have...
How does that come out without moving the... It's not connected.
Oh, because... you guys are. I get it. I see what's happening.
I know there's the disconnect, and I'm trying to voice in words. So there's the big LED light that spans across the hood, the top one.
Yeah.
That's the most
one
iconic.
Big piece.
The one big iconic thing that can stay there. If you go down a foot or two, you meet that seam between the metal and then the plastic. In that little inset area, there are LEDs right there that you can see if you zoom in and all that. So those LEDs can still be there, assuming that those don't move up with the rest of that metal body. Those can still be there.
I don't think those count as the front headlights. Those are just additional lights.
So if those don't count, then what Tesla technically could do if they still want to have a frunk that does the same thing that the Silverado and the Lightning do, but they can't really mess with, like, they don't want to mess with what they've got right now, and they want to make a big frunk. You can have that whole thing lift. It's just at that same location where the LED strip angles outward towards the hubs. You have lights underneath that body right there, and those turn on when the frunk goes up. But what I'm arguing is that Tesla wouldn't do that. They wouldn't add lights.
I don't think they would, but I think there's a difference of understanding of how the law works. I don't think there needs to be some kind of headlight that doesn't move. It's the point is whatever the headlight is, it can't move. And in this case, it would be the light bar. Like, even if there was, like, okay, we put backup lights inside, like, that doesn't count because whatever the primary headlights are. I think if you put them like the low beams, like what do you call them, fog lamps, I don't think those would qualify because they're too low. But I'm no expert, and either way, the interview with Matt was that they're not doing that. It's basically like a Model X front hood anyway, or it just opens like a regular Tesla. But the more interesting part, other than the front, that's kind of a disappointment. But he was saying that the display on the inside is 18.5 inches, meaning it's the largest center display of any Tesla.
Wow.
Which I thought was kind of cool.
Makes sense.
I didn't hear that before.
It's a big truck. You need something big that spans that width. So that way both the passenger and the driver can interact with it without having to stretch too far.
And the more downside of that, though, is he said that it is a 5-seater, not a 6.
And that's the one thing that me and my wife were very disappointed with. Because we're big fans of the 6-seater trucks. And unfortunately, that doesn't look like that's going to be happening with this generation of trucks or EV trucks. It's just going to be...
Do you think it's because of the display?
I think they're just trying to decrease... I think
it could be kind of awkward to try to sit there with that giant screen, like in your lap.
Maybe. It might just be decreasing complexity. And also, they could just reuse the idea, or not the ideas, but some parts that they've, well, maybe not reuse some parts that they've used before, but reuse fundamentals that they've implemented before in the sexy lineup. So they don't have to think about, we want to have a middle seat that moves, but then also has a compartment in it, but then also has wireless charging integrated in it, and also has cup holders and all other stuff, and also cushion, and also has an airbag, so if there's a crash, that is readily available just in case of emergency. That's a lot of headache.
True.
And it's so much easier probably just on the safety side to just put an armrest right there, put everything there, it doesn't move, and you just say it's a 5-seater and you kind of just sacrifice that 6th seat, which I get it. If you're trying to simplify it manufacturing-wise and safety-wise, this is the best move. But
you're right. The crash rating of that middle seat would be pretty awful. You could imagine if you hit and there's just a giant screen in front of you, like how do you get an airbag in front of that person?
You need it underneath, or you need it on.
Their face is just going right into that screen.
Exactly,
basically.
And that's the tough part. That's why, like with my Ram, at least if you get the high end Ram with a 6-seater, that screen, it's big, but it's not like a giant massive screen still, because around it there are airbags ready for that passenger if there's a passenger there. But it's just, it's not a thing for this, which is whatever. It's a big disappointment for me and the wife because we love the 6-seaters, but it's just going to be how it's going to be. I guess.
You also mentioned that width was pretty expected to be accurate. The bed, how it kind of narrows in on the sides. And he said the reason for that is because they want the rear wheel steering to be standard. And a lot of the hardware needed to make those back wheels turn independently takes up a lot of space on those walls of the bed on either side, which is why it's kind of narrow. But it is still a over 6-foot bed. I think he said it was like 6.1 inches to the tailgate and then longer when folded down. But it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I mean,
this whole thing is turning out to be more of a bummer, and we anticipated this.
You're not wrong, right?
It's a really cool looking bummer, I'll admit. But it
is a cool
cooler than the Hummer. The Hummer is a bummer, but this one is.
This is a better Hummer, so it is a bummer.
It's a bummer.
I'm pretty sure. Do you agree at least with my idea that there's a sub trunk there? It looks like there's a section that folds
up. Looks like
up.
there's a handle right there, yeah.
So that's a decent amount of space that you can close in the vault. Oh, another thing he said that really confused me. He said it's not a rear view screen; it's still a mirror. Yeah. Which I was like, so how can you see behind you when the tonneau cover's closed?
You don't. You
Side mirrors.
Cameras.
You just don't?
Yeah.
So the truck, like by default, you can't that mirror is going to be so pointless. Look how tiny
my mirror's pointless as I use it now. I barely see anything out the back of my wide.
I know,
and it's still there.
But that's an existing vehicle. This vehicle's not out yet, and
exactly. I think they need to take a page out of the Aptera book and just put a camera there, and that's it.
Well, there's got to be a camera. They just didn't put a screen, right?
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, a screen.
Yeah.
Where the mirror is.
Yeah.
Or just do the Chevy approach and have it flip.
Is that a legal thing?
No.
It's not illegal to just have a rear view screen and no rear view mirror?
I think that's on a few models, but even so, you don't even have to do that. You could just make it a screen, but have it as a reflective, like a mirror. And then
both. Yeah.
That screen, you don't even have to do the gym approach. You don't have to do the whole, like, you flip it up and then it becomes a screen. You can avoid that patent if there is a patent there. And just whenever the screen is off, it is a mirror. And whenever the screen is on, it is a screen. You just make the mirror a weak mirror in which it doesn't have to be.
That's kind of what screens do anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a strong mirror anyways because you're not seeing
It's a black
much.
mirror.
The RAV4 did it, the click up, and it becomes a thing when I was test driving it.
So. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a patent thing, or unless GM and Toyota had a nice agreement for that. So
I doubt that. It feels pretty standard.
Yeah. I think that was a weird one to me. I wonder if he just got bad information, but he wasn't being super concrete about it. He was taking a lot of the wink answers. He was saying that when he asked about the quad motor, they said, "Oh, I wouldn't be too sure about quad motor." So his theory is that they're going to reuse the same style of powertrain as the semi and just have three motors.
Tri-motor is back, decoupling. Baby.
Yeah. Back to tri-motor. And the way he was speculating a lot, but he was saying that he felt like dual motor would be first, which makes sense to me because what he didn't talk about and what Tesla, honestly, maybe the reason I wasn't excited about Investor Day was because there was so little talk about battery density and like, there's talk about scaling production, which they always talk about, but there wasn't talk about like how much range can you pack in this vehicle. And in Matt's interview, he said that the weight would be pleasantly surprising. So in my head, I'm like, okay, you're using 4680 batteries. You're saying the weight is not, insane. That means it's probably not a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, which rules out 500 mile range. Yeah. If you're going to start with one, in my head, it would make sense. Start with the dual motor 300 mile range and say eventually we'll do the 500 because everybody who wants the 500 is going to buy this anyway and then just sell it when the 500 is available. That gives Tesla plenty of time to scale up higher density 4680s. 4680s right now aren't very dense, so he didn't talk about that. But the way I interpreted it was the first iteration is going to be the dual motor 300 mile range, and they'll say the best is yet to come with a future Cybertruck Plus, whatever you want to call
Cybertruck it. Plus. Cybertruck Max. Cybertruck Ultra.
Yeah, right. It's just like, well, with all these disappointments stacked up, I think we should just expect the range to also be disappointing as well.
I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. The more I think about it, I think it's going to be 350. I don't think it's going to be...
Is that pleasant? Is that
350 to 400 is decent. It puts it in the middle of the Lightning and the Silverado, and it puts it in the range of the Rivian. So it's squashing
I would agree.
The startup while also competing with the Legacy. So I think that new range that I just said before is probably something that I'm expecting for the launch edition Cybertruck.
Okay. I would be pleasantly surprised. I don't think it'll happen based on 4680 cell density. I think you would need something like 150, 180 kilowatt hours to get that much range out of it. But
maybe. I
hope you can.
I think if you're putting in 150, you'd be getting around 420. Haha. I think around there.
Because I think Rivian uses like a 180 to get 400.
Yeah, but are they known for being the most efficient batteries that they integrate into their vehicle, or being the most efficient weight vehicles? At least,
yeah, they're not really known for efficient anything. No, unfortunately.
So you kind of have to take the Tesla X factor being efficiency,
and
their engineering I think.
That's true.
And I think this is where I will go hard and be a little bit of a Tesla bull in regards to.
Okay.
I do think they can reach that 500 miles if they wanted to with maybe a 200 kilowatt hour pack or maybe a little bit less. A lot of this kind of spurred from you talking with Chris Anthony, actually, with him talking about different suppliers and what they supply or what they give in terms of battery packs. Like, we'll give you an 18 kilowatt hour pack, and they're like, okay, I guess we can try to stretch this to 250 miles or whatever.
That was really cool that he brought that up. I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
And so that's why I think maybe this last note on the Cybertruck, and we can quickly talk about your interview with Chris Anthony. But I think Tesla, one, being their own cell suppliers, can configure it in a way to get up to a modest amount of range while not breaking the bank on the amount of batteries they're putting in or the weight. But again, that still remains to be seen, and that's all speculation.
Of course, it's all, but that's the fun part to me. I love the speculation, but
It is fun.
yeah, I think I'll be shocked if it's under 300. I'll put it that way. I don't think they would do that, but I'll also be pleasantly surprised if it's over 350. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, 350, 320, 330, something like that. But you're right. They could probably do that with, I think, like 120 kilowatt hours, whereas the other guys need more like 130, 140. You want to get a range prediction in, Randy, before we change subject?
I think the 300 is the safest.
Okay.
Yeah,
Most
I
conservative
like
approach
that's
or answer.
that's expected. Anything less, people go like, "What are you doing?" Anything more, you're like, "Oh, look at that!" But then, that comes at the like if tri-motor is not first, then yeah, dual motor has to hit 300 at least. Yeah, that's the safest.
That's the closest to the specs they promised, right?
Right.
How many cells they need to get to 500 is going to be insane, and they probably need several more years of refining before they can get that. So
at this point, they just want to launch something, and starting with a dual motor, 300 range, in today-ish, 2024. That's okay. It's not the best. It's what's expected, and hey, it's version 1. Wait until we roll out the next one, and then the update, and then the price increase for that, because we're justifying the range, and we'll have all that PR stuff happening. But 300 is what
maybe tax credit qualification 79.9.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
maybe, yeah, maybe.
That almost sounds believable to me because they're starting with a lower end trim, but I just don't want to set the false expectation. I think that's dangerous.
Again, I think it's still on flux because even so, like Franz said on the Ride the Lightning podcast, the designs are always fluctuating. So
yes,
I think to just think of design as always fluctuating might be doing a disservice, because I'm sure their plans for rolling out the product are still in motion and trying to, or I guess still variable in regards to if they want to start with dual or tri or quad. It could be a weekly discussion that they have every, like, with Franz and Elon.
It's just like us. Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows?
They watch our show and then they talk about what we said. But
Exactly.
We've delayed Go ahead.
I figured it out.
Okay.
They're going to keep it at 79.9 thousand while deliveries are limited to employees.
So 4680 Model Y territory again.
Yeah, they will just deliver it internally to everyone that ordered one. That way, all the employees get the tax credit, and they only have to pay $63,500. And then once they roll it out to the masses, they can price it at $90K because they'll
very
pay
bold
for it.
statement, but
That's a rude statement.
Well, I mean, it's selfish, but
it might be a realistic statement.
I know.
they worked really hard on it, so they want to reward themselves by lowering the
Maybe
the entry
Tesla's
price for
never
the
really
employee.
been one for lowering it too much, though, with evidence of the sexy lineup being like,
That's true.
you can't even gift your own mom a free car; she has to pay. But we've delayed this long enough. How was the interview with Chris Anthony that I sorely missed, but honestly at the same time I very much enjoyed listening to while I was on a small road trip?
Well, it was amazing, and we missed having you. I think you could have probably
Chris
asked
Anthony missed
way
me?
more. Yeah. We had a long off-the-record top conversation after the recording where he just said he was so upset that Mike wasn't there, and that was really the only reason he agreed to do the interview was to talk
So that's
to
why
you.
it was so short.
But yeah, we kept it short. But no, he dropped a lot more spec numbers and stuff than I was anticipating, and he was a lot more direct with their efficiency targets and engineering, and then. Not joking, we did have a very long off-the-record conversation once we stopped recording about the company and investors and things he can't say publicly, but was frustrated by, or just testing stuff like how biased it is against SUVs and pickup trucks, and how they have completely different standards compared to the Aptera, which is hard for him because they put a lot of safety emphasis on the Aptera. Trying to make it as safe as possible, and the curvature of the design allows to exert force differently in an impact, and the wheels being on the outside mean that there's no axle, so that when you are in a collision, the axle and the wheels aren't pushing inward towards the cabin. They're pushing on the outside. So he's like, we have more than the required amount of crumple space in our vehicle and airbags and all these things to try to make it safe, but still, because it looks weird, people just immediately, oh, that must be dangerous the second they look at it. So he talked a lot about their work with Tesla on the supercharger network. It's not just them looking at the documents of NACS and saying, see, we can access supercharger. Like, no, they were working with Tesla directly. So
Cool.
Kind of off the record, he expanded on what Jason was referring to, because Jason's answer was it's both. It's not just what Tesla says or us working directly. It's a combination. And I was really surprised that he was like, yeah, with our 100 kilowatt hour pack, we want to do, someday we'd like to do 300 kilowatts, which I was like, because with a vehicle that efficient,
Imagine
that would be like 3,000 miles an hour charge speed, which is, like, Randy was getting 900. Now imagine more than triple that. I was like, dude, this is rivaling gas pump speeds. This is getting to the point of that's how quick it is. So I did not expect him to drop figures like that, and also talk about how it's like, well, once we reach certain suppliers, we, like you mentioned, the 18 kilowatt hour pack, that got my gears turning. I was like, oh dang. He's saying that they can go below 100 watt hours per mile, which is even more mind blowing to me. So I guess I'm an efficiency guy. That's the stuff that excites me. So when he got into the numbers about that, and I was like, is that an average for the whole lineup or just the launch? And he was like, no, it's the whole lineup, but expect the lower trim to get way better efficiency than that. I was like, what? It was like my mind was blown. When he was talking about what to expect. And
you gave him many opportunities to talk about his side business with batteries.
Yeah. Flex power.
Yeah.
No, I think it's cool. I think it's cool that both Steve and Chris have successfully launched other startups that have done well and even went public, and continue to deliver products and services to people. I think that says a lot to their experience in the field, and how they're not just nobodies that have never done anything that just got an idea one day. It's like, no, these guys have consistently known what it takes to grow a company, grow a startup, and build something and maintain it and keep it going. And I was like, that, I thought it was cool to hear more about what he did on those other companies and his battery businesses and that kind of thing. So I've just accepted now, there's no turning back, that if Aptera doesn't make it, I will be very, very mad and upset. Because at the beginning I was like, well, don't get your hopes up, Drew. It's a startup, and startups don't always end up doing. And like we've said on this show many times, they can't all make it. Statistically, the vast majority of these startups have to go at some point. So I was like, try not to get your hopes up. But I'm like, it's too late. My hopes are too high. I have too much hype in my heart surrounding a solar-powered vehicle that could charge itself, and envisioning the charging speed and the range numbers and the repairability, and just the way it looks is so iconic and so recognizable. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna hurt. No way around it. even if they're long gone someday, if they don't make it, I'm going to be referencing them in my videos. I'm still going to be talking about how that's what it should have been. That's the direction EVs should have taken. But I still, honestly, have been very impressed with the accelerator program and how many people have invested in that. And there's still talking with pretty big investment funds right now. So I have hope that they will make it. And it's just going to be a patience game of just having to wait a bit longer. But I'm much more interested in that type of future than I am robotaxis or full self-driving, because, you know, to bring it full circle, a lot of questions I got on the Aptera interview were, how is Aptera going to compete with a Model 2 or whatever Tesla comes out with on the next gen platform? And I just kept trying to remind everybody that the Gen 2 platform is going to be either a compact or a pickup or something that's $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 range, that has a couple seats or whatever. Aptera's main focus is not just the upfront cost, but the cost of ownership and the idea of a vehicle that can charge itself. That's not something Tesla is really pursuing in any way that I can tell. They don't have a big push towards, let's make a hyper efficient vehicle that gets 10 miles per kilowatt hour. That way you cover it in solar cells. No, Aptera's focus is like, most of their pre-orders are for vehicles that have over 400 miles of range. These are for the long distance drives and the people that don't want to plug in the car, period. And Chris brought up all those commercial applications, you know, service visits, or people that monitor meters or do perimeter fencing maintenance, or plumbing guys, or, you know, people that are at work. It's got a lot of space in the back, 32 cubic feet, and it doesn't need to plug in. You can leave it outside. It doesn't need to be locked up. It's got there's financial incentive to leaving it outside. And with them boasting 400, 600,000 mile range, I feel like that's a completely different market than, you know, a 270 mile range compact or 200 something mile range pickup. You know, that'll serve its market. And like we said, Giga Mexico is focusing on Latin America, but Aptera, I feel like, is going after a very passionate group, considering I was watching one of their investment presentations. They secured more reservations faster than any other startup, faster than Rivian, faster than Lucid, Canoe. They got way more public interest than either of those guys, and they didn't pay for any advertising. They didn't promote it. They didn't. They just unveiled it, and then, yeah, he really doubled down on the referral program too, which surprised me. I thought that would be worth.
Drew was trying to pull the ladder up after he got up there. He's like, nobody else. He was trying to block us all.
No. To be fair, I'm still interested, even if they canceled the referral program. That would be my next vehicle. That would be the one I'm most curious. But yeah, the referral program definitely makes it more compelling.
But his thing, he's such a businessman. It made so much sense. He's like, I mean, that's advertising, and that's a percentage of cost of doing business, and it's a way to give back, and like it totally makes sense. You know what I like about that interview? That it shows the headspace overall with Aptera. The main word if I was to allocate one word to Aptera, it would be efficiency. Like their whole business model is around efficiency. The way it looks, why it does it, and the design works around efficiency. I love that from a design point of view. I love that. It's not weird for the sake of being weird. Cybertruck is weird, but it had a purpose. It's like it's quicker to make and pop, and thus it looks like
durable.
This.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what's the opposite of that? Here's the most efficient vehicle we can make, and they're only focused on we just want to make one good product. It's very Apple. The way he was talking about it was very Apple-esque. Like, be really darn good about this one thing that we can make. Don't worry about this other stuff. If investors want a truck or a sedan or whatever down the road, no, I'm not gonna introduce that now or say we'll be working on that to get funding. When I just want to draw.
I was trying to push him for that. I was trying to say, I mean, you guys need to clickbait more. You know, you need to.
He's efficient with his marketing too. He's like one thing.
Yeah. Right.
He's embodying the 1,000 no's for every yes. We said yes to one
Yes.
thing, this thing, and you
Right.
you can't. I'm so focused on this one thing, you can't deter me off of it. I can't allocate my attention towards something else. It becomes even then the trying to get that up and going. It becomes then not that efficient. And the fact that he's like, yeah, we can technically sell these right now. That was cool. He's like, for all intents and purposes, if we wanted to put it out there right now and sell them, we could. But they're just like the commitment to all that they want to do with this vehicle is fair. I like it. Listening to him speak gave me hope that if they do make it, it's gonna be absolutely on their own merit of it, based off of this one thing that they made. Like we said we're working on this one thing. We've been open about how we're working on it. We're delivering this one thing, and if that
So transparent about
love that.
everything. Just the wiring, the engineering of the chassis, the suspension, like everything people ask about. They're like, "Yep, here it is. Here's how we did it. Here's how." And
they should be the one to survive out of anybody else because they're not biting off more than they can chew.
They've spent a fraction of what the other startups have spent to get to this stage.
Yeah.
Like a tenth of what Rivian or Lucid had to spend before they had like a Delta design.
And the design is the logo. It also speaks from a market point of view.
Right.
There it is. Like why we like the Cybertruck for its uniqueness. It challenges the norm of what we want these vehicles to look like. And he's that passionate about it. It's like it shouldn't have 4 wheels because then I have to go through more red tape. And if it's more efficient to get this to market with 3 wheels and it's just as good, I can make a case to be even better. Then why wouldn't we do it? Because now it's saving everybody money because we don't have to pay all this extra baloney for it. Less red tape.
Pass it on to us. All that savings.
I just love that headspace. Like okay, fine. It doesn't have to be a vehicle for everybody, but people will buy that. That is.
I could see it totally becoming one of the most popular like secondary vehicles.
Yeah.
For so many because of how complementary it is. It's like you don't need to park it in the garage. In fact, you shouldn't because it'll charge itself. And I think they know that. You know, he has a Model S, like he said. He's like, this is a 2-seater. We're aware it's not supposed to replace your SUV or your family car, but it's just meant to, for those drives of 2 people or 1, do that as efficiently as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And by going down even further from, like, you don't have to go to the gas station, you can plug in from home. Now they're like, no, you don't even have to plug in. Yeah. I'm going to be sad. I've established that if they don't make it, because I think it'll be more of a disappointment on the investment community as a whole, seeing how much capital that Rivian and Lucid and other companies have been able to raise. It's like these guys are asking for a fraction of what the other startups are asking for. Yeah. And they have a much clearer path to profitability because the batteries are way smaller per vehicle. It costs them way less to make. They've simplified their design so much. They're working with Monroe and Associates to get those prices down. So it's like, you want to talk about like a safe startup investment. To me, that's it. Like that's as safe as you could get, essentially. Tesla's not a startup, by the way, just so we're clear. Tesla's long past. Tesla's that fine line between not legacy auto but not a startup. That's what Tesla is.
They have a start
Tesla is new gen.
Yeah,
They're
right.
New gen. That's what they are.
Yeah. Tesla's modern day, I think, legacy auto's history, and Aptera's the future. That's how I see it. I don't think as Tesla's designs as futuristic. I just see them as modern and everyone else is dated. That's how I look at Tesla. But
Tesla's
I feel
the standard.
Right, they're the standard. That's exactly right. So, yeah, I'm hopeful for them, and I was really encouraged and really uplifted after our long talk afterwards. And just, we speculate all the time, right, on this show. We talk about pricing and range, and Tesla will do this, or this company could price it this way. But it was so different to just be chatting with a CEO and spitballing like that. And I was just like, well, have you thought about doing this? And he's like, well, we could, but here's why. And those kinds of things, a lot of stuff that I can't talk about, sadly. I didn't sign a contract, but he asked me not to, and I want to respect them, and I want to be trustworthy. So either way, though, it was.
They put out their time for us. It's good, or it should be at least expected from us, but it'd be very silly of us not to respect that. But again,
for sure,
if you guys are listening, Aptera, thank you again for giving us the time, especially Drew,
absolutely,
to be able to interview both, or I guess all of y'all. But working with the whole Aptera team was a fantastic experience. They were very understanding.
Yeah, they were cool.
Our schedule limitations, we were understanding of theirs, and we made it work. And it made some pretty cool interviews.
It did. The audience's response from it was really cool too. I was happy to see people's interest in it as much as mine. I was like, I'd like to be known as the guy that fought for Aptera as much as possible. You know,
I like how you edited it. I like
days.
how when he said certain things, you just punched in on it. Even the editing was.
Thank you.
That much more quality.
And obviously the questions were so much better than so how much is it gonna cost? You know, do you ever think you'll compete with Tesla? You're so far beyond that. Again, like I said in the last one, you presented it in a way that's let's just talk things as they were a matter of fact. It was all right, now that we're doing this here, how do you see that being an advantage for this? It's the typical you were asking questions the same way we bounce these deeper ideas off of each other. So yeah, it's way
very conversational, and it wasn't wasn't like a ego thing or I'm talking down to someone. He was just he behaved exactly the way he did off camera as he did on, and you can tell by his mannerisms and the way he described it that he's just really passionate about that product. It's not about becoming rich. It's not about being famous or anything. For him, it's just, I want more efficient transportation. And to me, that is so factual and so logical, because that's why we're switching to EVs.
Right.
That's why EVs are a thing, is the efficiency. It's not because we wanted faster acceleration. It's not because we wanted more, phone key technology or better software in our cars. It was you can get those stuff in gas cars. The whole reason we're switching to electric is for the efficiency. And no one else is prioritizing it like they are. So I was you're the spearhead of the movement in my head of let's take efficiency to the maximum. And that's why I want them to succeed more than anyone. And I think the really heartbreaking thing for me is okay, if any of these, if Lordstown doesn't make it, if Lucid doesn't make it, there's other luxury sedans. There's other pickup trucks. They're not the only ones. If Aptera doesn't make it, our options for solar efficiency in vehicles is basically gone. No one else is really doing that. No. Ugh, no.
But Drew, it's an SUV. Let me sell you on it. Let me tell you about this.
But SUV, yeah, it's how many freaking SUVs do we need? But that's what catches me about them so much is they're not just going with the grain. There's following the EV community for a while, it gets tiring when you just read about, okay, here's a 18th SUV, here's another pickup that has a light bar.
I like that you brought that up in the interview as well. Just how about another SUV? No.
Right. It's why are we pushing so hard for them when we have so many SUV options already? If one goes out, there's 8 million others to replace it. That's Aptera, there's really only one thing like it. I don't see anyone else making something remotely similar with the aerodynamics and the solar. And I don't think Tesla's going to do it. So they're the ones. And I'm cheering for them, and I'll help them in any way, shape, or form. And hopefully we'll get some more in-person style collaborations and stuff in the future. But yeah, that was really awesome for them to make the time for us. Little guys.
Cool. If you can do in-person stuff, that'd be nice. Just to see more hands-on the stuff that he's working on.
For sure. Well, thank you all for listening. Thanks for letting me fanboy at the end.
It's fine.
I'm always happy to fanboy. If I talk to anyone long enough, I'll bring up Aptera. But thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.